So let's go to the three guys, Harrison, that you think will be busts and letdowns. And this is mainly because of their ADP and how early you have to take them. You don't like the value, or maybe you just don't think, hey, I just don't believe in this guy anymore. Who's that for you?
So the three guys where I think you're going to be really disappointed if you draft them early in your fantasy drafts are Michael Pittman, Jackson Smith and Jigba, and Aaron Jones. You look at Michael Pittman, he's going as the wide receiver 21 in drafts right now, which is fine because the last two seasons he's finished as the wide receiver 15 and the wide receiver 23. And people are really excited about Anthony Richardson, but for fantasy purposes, I don't think that correlates to success for Michael Pittman because Anthony Richardson's value comes from running the football. Anthony Richardson was not a great quarterback last year passing, only a 59% completion percentage and ranked 29th among QBs in passable and catchable pass rate. I don't think that translates well for Michael Pittman finishing as a top 20 wide receiver. I think people are going to be disappointed with that pick. Another wide receiver you look at, Jackson Smith and Jigba, very popular post-hype sleeper. Everyone thinks, he's going to have a better season this year. He did was a rookie, first-round talent. He has to. And while I think that's true, I just don't think he's really going to pay off that much on his ADP of wide receiver 42. Because even if he has a better season and passes Tyler Lockett on the depth chart, he's not passing DK Metcalf. He's not becoming the number one guy there. And when you look at offenses that have two elite fantasy wide receivers, they really need to be an elite NFL offense as well. I mean, you look at guys like T. Higgins and Jalen Waddle, Devonta Smith, Brandon Ayuk. They're all on top NFL offenses. That's why they're also able to have great seasons as a number two on their team. I don't think Seattle is going to be a top 5 offense in the league. I think Smith and Jigba will be better. But, if he finishes as the wide receiver 34, being drafted as the wide receiver 40, yeah, that's technically value, but that doesn't really help your team that much. And then the final guy, which I have no idea why he is being drafted as high as he is Aaron Jones. I mean, Aaron Jones is 30 years old. He's only had 8 total rushing touchdowns over the last 3 years. And that was in the Green Bay offense with Jordan Love and Aaron Rodgers as his QB. Now he goes to Minnesota. You look at the reasons for why you should draft a running back, right? Like, is he in a top offense? Well, no, Aaron Jones is not in a top offense. Well, is he going to get 25 touches a game? No, Aaron Jones has never been that type of guy who's going to get 25 touches a game. Well, is he some young guy who we think his role is going to increase and he's going to be explosive? Like I said, he's 30 years old. We kind of know what Aaron Jones is at this point. And he's going as the RB19 in drafts, a running back too. That's absurd to me. If your only argument for, production is that, well, he's the starter in Minnesota, just draft Devin Singletary then, who's the starter for the Giants, or Austin Eckler, who's a similar type of player, is going as the RB33. Just take those guys later rather than taking Aaron Jones as a top 20 option. Makes no sense.
Totally agree on Aaron Jones. That is a very clear bust there. But I disagree with you. I want Michael Pittman. I like that. Wide receiver 21, I think that's good value for him. I think the Colts will be much better this year. And so I understand Anthony Richardson as a runner, but still, they got to throw to somebody. Pittman's their guy. And then to me, Jackson Smith and Jigba, I think that's pretty late for him. So the potential there, if Geno gets back to really throwing the ball all over the field, I would rather have DK Metcalf. Don't get me wrong. I'm targeting him in drafts. He's one of my favorite players to draft. But I'm not as out on him, Jigba, as you are. So, but anyway, good takes anyway, nonetheless. So we'll disagree. That's why when you're in a draft, you're going to disagree. You're going to take a guy and the other guy's going to take somebody else. That's part of the deal. So we like it. But here are my 3 guys that I believe will be busts and disappointments and letdowns this season. David Montgomery, Josh Jacobs, and get this, Puka Nacua. Oh, everybody's darling. Let me start there. We all loved Puka last year, especially if you picked him up off of waivers or rolled the dice on a late round draft pick, and he burst onto the scene. First 2 weeks, he's catching over 10 catches. He's getting into the end zone. He's lighting it up for the Rams and ended up having a very productive season for the Rams. But right now, you have to draft him in the first round. He's going 10th overall. He's the 7th wide receiver taken. And I just don't think that he's going to do that type of production. I just don't believe it. I've got to see more of it. And when you start looking at what he did last year, it was pretty heavy toward the early part of the season. And so I think there was so much excitement and hype around him that our feelings toward Puka are stronger than the reality of Puka. And so it's moving him so far up the draft boards. I think it's just unrealistic. You're still counting on Matthew Stafford to deliver a number one receiver, a first-round pick. You're going to build your whole fantasy team around Puka Nacua? I can't do that. I'm sorry. I'm out. So I don't believe it. And then as far as David Montgomery goes, this to me is so easy. Come on. Jahmyr Gibbs is the guy. We saw it. Second half of the season, who took over? It was Gibbs. I know Montgomery will sneak into the end zone every once in a while, but right now Montgomery is going as RB19. So you are expecting him to be an RB2. I don't think you can do that week in, week out. You got to draft him pretty early. And don't forget, weeks 11 through 18, he did not go over 100 yards. So toward the end of the season, when Jahmyr took over, he wasn't going over 100 yards. If you're putting an RB2 in your lineup, you got to hope he's getting 100 yards. I mean, so at least at some point in those weeks, and you're talking. So I can't trust David Montgomery. And then Josh Jacobs in Green Bay. No, I want the passing attack. I want Jordan Love the value there. And then I don't know which wide receiver. I was talking to a Packers fan yesterday. It's unclear who the wide receiver you want in fantasy with Green Bay, but you probably want one of them because this is going to be a dynamic offense from a passing standpoint. And if you believe that Josh Jacobs is going to catch some out of the backfield, maybe, but you have to draft him as RB12. That means that's your starting running back. That's your RB1. No, thank you. He's already got hamstring issues. Last year, he only had 2 games over 100 yards the whole season. 2 games over 100. I know the Raiders stink, but guess what? My boy Zamir White came in and was awesome at the end of the season, and he was rushing over 100 yards. So Josh Jacobs in Green Bay, no thank you. Those are my busts, Montgomery, Jacobs, and Puka Nacua.